Hi, Jack.
Oh, good. I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm still learning this system.
Okay. Well, yeah, for some reason the default is audio off. And so,
By the way, do you control who speaks in these conferences? Can you acknowledge when somebody wants to speak and they raise their hand or touch a button and you know who to?
I could mute them all and then unmute them. I haven't had to do that, but that that it is possible if you have a large number of participants. And I do sometimes mute people. For example, when Jack Matheson or Ruth are on, they often make a lot of noises. So I'll sometimes mute them just so that people can hear the speaker.
Right, yeah, and sometimes so people don't talk over top of each other.
Hello.
Hello, Ann.
Hey, Ann.
Reporting in.
Good. Well, you've done a lot of work, so that's very, very valuable. Both of you have, I might add.
Not me.
It's what you can do when you're under the gun.
Well, yeah, I think we need to get the processing away so that they don't further sabotage the processing.
I'm with you.
Agreed.
So
As I try to say in my paper, I think this can be done very quickly. Very quickly.
well, I think so, and I've talked to Basil this morning because things were moving so rapidly, and I think you guys are way ahead. So I'm inclined to let you guys have it, and I'll probably drop back and work on a different approach.
Which is?
Well, we have a brand called Active Aging Advocates
Uh-huh.
that that's within NaCCRA that could be developed, and then that would allow it to. Hello, Basil.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Basil.
So I guess we can start now.
Let me unplug my phone.
Okay. There's okay. Is everyone okay with the agenda?
Yes.
Yes, that's good to me.
Okay. So one of the questions that came up, and I've got it up here on the screen. Well, let's wait till Jim gets back. Okay, one of the things that came up was whether we should respond to Bennett and say, we want you to continue processing paper until the end of the year. And Bennett's people are clearly threatened by the online thing, I think because they fear that there'll be staff reductions. So they don't want to see that spread. So I'm a little uncomfortable with that. I don't think we need to acknowledge Bennett's termination letter. His letter was pretty clear. Basil the other day said, is this just somebody saying I need more attention, or is this a divorce? I think that letter made it clear that it's divorce. And I think that when Bennett phoned Basil and told him, and Basil said, I hear you, we've acknowledged it. So I don't think we need further acknowledgement. I think we can move directly so that our communications with Bennett are on action items. And so is there any disagreement with that?
Basil, did you receive, excuse me, you received this letter by email or mail?
We did. It was followed up by, I had a call, and then I think I sent it around the horn.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm sure I did. And did you get that, Ann?
Yeah, so he broke up by email rather than formal.
I didn't give it to you, Jim. Just kept it to the executive committee at this point.
Well, somebody gave it to me, so I have the letter.
Yeah, that's good. But we're the only 4 people that have it so far. Because I really want a little bit of posturing before we let anybody else know. But this is
Completely. Now, my interest was, I thought I heard Jack say that after you got the letter, you had a conversation with Bennett.
No, before.
No, he called before. I got a heads up. The letter came a couple of days later, but I did call and let people know I had to call. But now you have the letter, so I think the letter's dated October 16th, if I remember right.
Right. Well, I kind of agree with Jack. I don't think there's any hurry to acknowledge it.
That we don't have to notify him. I'm okay.
Yeah.
With proceeding because we have to proceed, I believe.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
and he's going to know by a week from the day, if I think that we're moving on the action.
Yeah, well, the one thought I'd have from listening to, I think you've covered item 2, by the way, on the agenda, but I think that before we tell the membership, it'd be nice to know where we're heading. So that
I think so too. Yes,
we
yes.
don't want to just pull the rug out. So,
Yeah.
Right.
So
It'll be, the announcement will be a nice PR. We're moving in a new direction for better and more vital need, blah, 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 big PR piece.
Yes.
Before we leave the first item on the agenda, Bennett has talked to me, I would say, at least 3 times in the last 6 months. And he has always alluded to the fact that he was making no money on us, that they supported our mission, but it did not come as a surprise to me. I regret that I didn't catch the 30 to 90 days, but I did not. I only looked at the part of the contract that dealt with the lifeline processing, which is the only reason we made that change. So, but that's history. I can't unfry that egg, but that's the way it is.
well, I think that just tells us exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
For whatever reason, I didn't want that elephant.
To me, slipping that 30-day change in there was treacherous.
But at any rate, I just want you to know that this has been a song, and that as far back as 2012, he's actually given NaCCRA different strategic things that he thought we ought to do. But that's enough said. I just wanted you to know it's got a longer tail than just the last few months.
Yeah. So, okay, with that, then let's see if we agree on the needs part, what it is we need to get done, because that brings out some of the challenges, and I don't think we want to go too fast past some of the challenges, but we're by the way, we're very reluctantly accepting his decision. Okay. Anyway, it seemed they just happened to come out cute here. There's cost, competence, cooperation, and customization. We've been paying $1,000 a month. So that's a benchmark. And that has been a very large number and has been a source of resentment by some members, particularly in states where they had volunteers doing the administration. As I recall, Bill Root was one of those who led that. I think Maryland uses volunteer administration. Is that right, Ann?
That's correct.
So
we have a legislative liaison, but she does not do the administration of members.
So a lot of people questioned our spending money the way we did on Bennett. And we did that with the objective that he would build our membership. When we contracted with him during 2011, and I made the motion at the time we were relying on, he was familiar with the senior population, the CCRC model, and he had built the Florida organization from 700 members to 13,000 over a 3-year period. So we thought that by 2014, we would be up with thousands of members. That was the reason he was originally retained. That's not the story that he presents. He presents that he just took over the clerical work that was done by David Coburn, and for which we paid $500 a month, and that was all that he had to do. So that's a question. But anyway, the challenge that I see here is this fourth bullet point. There is so much customization. So, for example, Village on the Green remits once a year, and for all the members, people there who are resident members, I think Village on the Green does that. I know that some others do.
Only for FLICRA, not for NaCCRA.
Okay, well, there are others that do it for NaCCRA. I can get you a receipt.
Yeah, whoever it is, but we do not.
And Barkley sent me. And when a new member comes in, they'll charge them like $1.84 or something. They prorate the cost. So you have to be able to, she said, well, to keep the system the way it is now, you have to have the manual processing to manage all of these variations. There might be 15, 20, or 30 variations. That's something that we need to have in mind, because there's an expectation that that will be there. I think the check processing, Jim has broken the back of. That was another one, but all right. Now, immediate needs. I think we all agree that we've got to get control of the organization's money. Is there any? Okay. And the sooner the better. I understand that Basil will be in Tallahassee next Friday, and if we can pin Bennett down, or whoever the signature is, I've never seen one of our bank accounts. I've never seen anything from SunTrust. So so I don't know who the signator on the account is. Generally, banks require it to be an officer.
Can I step in and say something? I think that Basil should call Bennett or somebody at Partners and ask for a copy and have them email it to you of the most recent bank statement for, if we have 2 accounts at SunTrust, apparently we do, looking at the financial statements, it talks about.
They're presented that way now.
Right. So at least we can get the account numbers. If we can get the account numbers, and based on my call with SunTrust, that was the first thing they asked. And I said, I have no idea what the account number is. They asked me a couple of other questions, and I couldn't answer that either. If you have the account number, then you can go to SunTrust and say, okay, here are these 2 accounts. I'm the president of Basil. I'm speaking for Basil now. I'm the president of NaCCRA. And we want to make some changes. We want to stay with SunTrust, but we need to change the signatories on the account and have the online login data. And they'll tell you how to do it. And I've done this a couple of times with other banks, and I think it's exactly the same. All you do is go in, and you'll have to sit down with whoever signatures are on that account, if it's Basil or anybody else, and change those signatures. I would start with you, because you're going to have to do this in person. I don't think you can do this by fax. Maybe you can. You can ask that.
Well, I plan to be at the partner's office. I've got an appointment actually there for 2 hours. And I didn't set it up with this in mind, but I'll be there between 8 and 10 on Friday morning.
Well, I would suggest that you call, I've forgotten his name, Chris Wilson, and tell him, and he's in Tallahassee, by the way, and tell him that you're going to be meeting with who you're going to be meeting with, And after that, would it be convenient to meet with him that morning?
Yeah.
You
Well,
may
that's
have
what I
to
say.
just simply walk across the street and get this done. And I've done it. It takes, if you're slow with your signature, it might take.
Well, we can do that. That's all possible.
Good. Okay.
Okay, back to you, Jim.
Okay, we need a permanent records repository. We need to know where the 990s are, where the state filing documents are. We need to know that we're in compliance. As far as I can tell right now, we're out of compliance in the state of Maryland because we named Bill Ratcliffe as a registered agent. He's no longer a resident in the CCRC, so he's no longer an officer, and we no longer have a registered agent in Maryland. We had directed Bennett to name a firm which has a similar name, I forget it now, to do that, but we didn't. But we also need, and this is important, a place where we have these documents. And that's something that will be critical. Da Vinci doesn't do it. Club Express doesn't do it. So that's something that you'll have to give some thought to. I don't know.
Now you're talking about the physical pieces of paper. The thing would be to find out what is permitted to be online, digital documents in lieu of paper for the future too.
Well, when you get a subpoena,
Yep.
Okay, as I've gotten these subpoenas, you get a subpoena to produce all the records of the corporation. That usually goes to the corporate secretary, which is you, Ann. Do you now have all the records of the corporation?
Well, my experience is that those records can be online, and they can be online at several places. I don't think they have to have the original signatures.
Yeah, well, we're just right for now. We're just going through what we need.
Right.
So we all agree that that's
I think we're talking about articles of incorporation, bylaws, tax returns, maybe.
Right.
But all that's, all that can be kept online.
Okay. So would you agree that that's a need?
That is a need.
Now it's going through
Yes.
Okay, that's a need. And then you've raised another question that wasn't here, which is exactly what records are included, and we need legal advice for that.
Yes, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But in terms of the registered agent, I believe, certainly in Virginia and Delaware, which I've never incorporated anything I can remember in Maryland, but there is a company that acts as your registered agent. They charge, and it's usually not very much.
Yeah, we directed Bennett.
I sent an email just before the meeting started. Right. I did make a call to the Maryland Registered Agent Company,
right,
to find out what was going on.
Yeah, we directed Bennett to do that. It was $49 a year.
Yeah, right.
And
them, but they have never gotten any orders to change the actual registered agent to the state, and that needs to be done.
Yeah, so, that's consistent with my experience working with Bennett over many years. Okay, the next thing that we need is a call center that can work with our demographic. People who don't spell their names right, they leave the G out. I sent you a thing this morning where the guy's address was Gmail and he left out the G. That was an important omission. So you need people who can work with our demographic. So that's a need. We need capable, reliable, clerical processing to work with whatever membership system you guys decide to put in place. And we need staff to support the volunteer leaders in adapting to the membership schedule. So, yeah, you know, a lot of people there. I've seen many times when Basil calls Kim Barkley and asks her to do little tasks for him. We need how that's going to be handled. That kind of support. Ruth Walsh, for example, on the Lifeline, she turns to Kim Barkley to do the whole thing for her. So,
What do you mean by the whole thing?
I mean the whole thing.
You mean writing?
Usually with Ruth, what's happened recently is that I've jumped in and bailed her out.
Well, so various people like yourself and Basil and others write articles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And those articles are submitted to who to put them together?
There's an editorial calendar, and they right now go to Kim Barkley. There's
Okay.
a date that everything has to be to Kim Barkley on.
Well, I relate this to the Falcons Landing newsletter, which is longer than Lifeline. It's about, I don't know, 30 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And we use, and I think I may have sent it to you, Jack, a printer that's very close to us. They actually have an online system where we have somebody here who does the proofing, and then this man and this company assembles it using probably one of the Adobe, Ann, help me out.
InDesign.
InDesign, right. InDesign, which is what everybody uses to put things like this together, sends it back, and then it goes to a group of people that print it one more time for the final edits, and then they print it. And I got some quotes on numbers. I don't have them right in front of me, but there's another possibility. We don't need to rely on partners for that. I'm sure we've got enough people that and don't look for me to spell anything, but
at least I think the point here is that right now that's something we do use, that editorial or clerical support. Lifeline is one example, but they do provide reports if we can talk.
What we're doing here now is getting what our needs are.
Yeah.
And I think the next one we've covered already. We're going to need financial integrity, we need bookkeeping, and we need financial statements.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that. I think we all agree with that. And now we've just got into Lifeline, so you'll need somebody to prepare Lifeline and to do. And if I stop doing notes and news, you'll need somebody to do that. Now, transition. This mailing address thing becomes a little tricky. And so that's something you may want to give some thought to. We've talked about Da Vinci, and I saw something this morning where they were saying $49 a month, which would be 5% of what we pay Bennett now to have, I don't know, a mail drop or something. So there's that. The next one was something that we haven't really talked about. That is, do we want to keep some minimal relationship with Bennett going so it's not just like a divorce, but it's more like a transition so that we keep him, because Bennett basically owns FLYCRA. He runs the Florida organization with 13,000 members. That was the base of his business, was his building of FLYCRA. And they really, the people in Florida, from what I've seen, sort of worship the ground the man walks on. So would we want to pay him something to be our representative there? That's a question. Or just to say, we'd like to retain you on call. Can we look to you whenever we need something, and we'll pay for you a fee for use at the time we ask for it? That's a matter of relationship management. We also have a phone number that we've put on various websites, and we could move that phone number to wherever we wanted, wherever the phone answering is going to be, using voice over IP connections. And Jim, you're probably far more versed on that than I am, although I use Vonage. I have a phone number that I use with Steve Ritchie, so I can call Steve Ritchie's free, for example. And then what are we going to do in the short term? If Bennett's people are, part of why he terminated is because his people didn't like having to use a new system. And we were asking them to help us develop the system so that we were sure that we were producing the reports that were needed, that sort of thing. And they were working with us sort of on that, but they've been a little bit reluctant. But with this termination, there's no way that his staff are going to want to spend time learning and working with a new system that's going away anyway. And if we're going to Club Express, that system will go by the wayside as well. So that's a question. How do you want to do this bridge area? And it looks like you're thinking that with Club Express, you may be able to get there very quickly. So then I went through a bunch of alternatives. I think you all have zeroed in here on this Club Express option. And so that means that we will be dropping the membership administration system. So that's the way I viewed the needs part of this. Then I did develop this thing. Well, let's go back to the main agenda here to make sure. I think this is the next thing. So the next thing was the options. What are our options? And we've got we want to make this for our membership. We want the transition to be as seamless as possible. We don't want it to look like a holdup. We want it to look like this is something that we've been managing all along to improve services for our members. I think that's got to be our pitch, or else the membership, which is already somewhat tentative, will go away.
I don't think, my guess, and I don't know, but I doubt if many of our members understand the relationship with partners or what it is. So I don't think we need to talk about that, do we?
I think they do understand. The state of Washington took back administration because they were so offended by some problems that they had with partners. They were very aware and very critical of partners.
Okay.
But anyway, all right, putting this thing together, I just put in you're all familiar with the little trickery there that got us 30 days notice, but I think it's just as well. When you have a divorce, it's best it's best to do it as clean, quickly as you can possibly do it. I think we all agree that our first thing is to get control of the money. And then we've got the options of we can continue with him till December 31, which would be the easiest thing, but might lead to these questions, and I assume you've all read through it, so I'll spare you reading through all that. We could have him start faxing all the mail to somewhere. That way, it wouldn't be that hard for them to scan all the mail and get it to us, and we might even be able to use that as a way for depositing checks and the like, but that's something Jim knows more about than I do. We could find somebody who's got an established business that has a bookkeeping operation within their business that would like a little extra trade. And then we've got this, the Club Express, or the hybrid approach. I think those are our options. Do any of you have other options? And I might add that,
in my opinion, Jack, you could do everything from look at a complete virtual or to try to staff an organization, which I think would just break the bank for us. I think we either find something that's virtual or we find a provider that has other clientele. So I think we could talk a lot about different options, but that's a big continuum that we would look at. So I think you've got it captured sufficiently for me.
Yeah, I think either of these last two are hybrids. Club Express has to be a hybrid too. It would be nice if we had an independent contractor, somebody who wanted to work from home and handle phone services for us, who understood the dynamic. It could even be a younger resident. That would give a central point of contact, somebody who knew us, but I'll leave that to wiser heads than mine. And then we've talked about that. So with that, let me go back and see. This was Jim Haynes shares this topic here with me. So Jim, why don't you take over?
Okay. Can you put up my paper with NaCCRA transition thoughts? Do you have that?
Yeah, I do. Let me just get it here. Okay, there we go.
Well, that doesn't have the last item on it, but that's all right. Never mind.
That doesn't have the last item?
No, the last item was just Club Express, but that, don't worry.
I've got it. I've got everything. Let's just see. Okay.
I can cover that.
All right.
That should be it, because I took the draft off. Okay. Well, I think, and I wrote this very quickly this morning about 6 o'clock when I was barely awake. I was awake, but I've been thinking about it. And I think I tried to answer all the questions that Jack just addressed. As I said, the very first thing we need to do is remove partners from all these accounts, and we've talked about that, so I think we can go on to the next one. In terms of PayPal, and I actually went on to PayPal and looked at their help section, and it's very clear how we changed the users. We can add up to 200 users, and each user can have certain, they call it levels of authority or permissions, as they say. So one user can do everything, including take the money out, and other users can just view it. There are a lot, and I didn't go into this very deep to find out exactly what the different access points are and permissions, but at least this is very clear how to do it. And I didn't want to click on anything that would tell anybody that I even looked at this site, but I think we can address that. If there is another PayPal account, which I suspect there might be, that may be the items that I have above there, the 1 through 6, apply to a PayPal business account. I don't know about the other PayPal account, but if we can get some information on that from partners, or all I need is the login information, I can tell in about 30 seconds what kind of account it is. So I think we can deal with the PayPal account very, very quickly. The second item is Lockbox, and this came up in my conversation with Chris Wilson. And I didn't get very deeply into it. He needed a lot more information before he could tell me very much. But a lockbox is basically an address where people send checks. It goes, and it's run by the bank. The bank opens the envelope, looks at the check, and deposits it into our account. And we don't even get involved in it. All we do is see that the check, the money's in the account and the check came from so-and-so. And again, there are a lot of questions I have about how exactly that works. But I think with a call back to Chris, we could find out. And I have no idea how much it cost, because he was asking me a lot of questions about the account that I had no answer. So they maybe look at, there are just a lot of questions and that's why I think we need to get the statement or at least get the account numbers because he can look it up. We said our account is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All he does is push a button and he'll have all the answers. So I think the lockbox is a very viable option for what to do with checks. And this gives us the ability, if we go with Club Express or what Jack's been working on, to first transition. So when somebody renews, we can simply say, you can send us your check if you want, mail it to this address, or you can click here and with your credit card, you're automatically renewed. And that way we'll find out, well, how many people are going to send checks and how many won't. That's the only way to find out. I mean, we can do the surveys that Ann did and the little one I did, but it's not going to tell until we find out, are people really, really willing to renew and send us money online or through ACH, which is the automatic clearinghouse, and that's how it goes directly into your account. Accounting systems. I've been using QuickBooks Online for a long time. I say a long time, it's 3 or 4 years. And I think it's fantastic. They have excellent support. It's relatively inexpensive. And it's a full-blown accounting system. It's not Quicken, by the way. This is an accounting system with charts of accounts and reports. We could even send our email invoices directly from QuickBooks. And we do it all the time. And you can have recurring invoices once a year, once 6 months, whatever you want, however you set it up. And it's easy to understand. You don't have to be an accountant. I'm not an accountant. I majored in accounting or in economics when I was in college. That was 100 years ago. So, and you don't even have to know where the debits and the credits go. You don't even have to talk debits and credits. It's a user-friendly system. And QuickBooks used to have what they call a desktop program. They are now transitioning all their desktop users to QuickBooks Online. I also had a very quick call with Club Express after I saw Ann's email, and I asked them about the interface because it mentions, I watched a bunch of those videos and still have more to watch, but about their interface with QuickBooks Online, and he said almost. They have written a new user interface, and it'll be connected with this month in November. And they want to get that done.
Can I interrupt you just a minute? Before you leave, the lockbox.
Mm-hmm.
That lockbox is operated by the SunTrust employees. Do you have any idea do you have a choice of offices or places where the envelopes would be made out?
I don't know, but I'm sure Chris Wilson can answer that question.
Yeah, that's okay.
I suspect, he's physically in Tallahassee. I guess that's maybe where SunTrust's headquarters is.
Yeah.
I don't know. But Chris can answer that in a minute.
Yeah, and keep in mind there is a check deposit option in Club Express for 80.
That's what I was going to ask. This would assume that the mail change would be from partners on John Knox Road to whatever this thing is at SunTrust.
Well, I think the lockbox is only going to be for checks. So I don't know what other mail do we get. I assume we might get a notice from the state of Maryland if we're.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would go to the Maryland agent.
Yeah, and he would send it to it, right?
But the thing is, before we get too far, there's some things Basil, that would be helpful to get from Bennett. For instance, the number of checks they receive a month, the number of pieces of mail that they get per month from our members, and the number of phone calls they receive from members per month. It would be that are not officer.
Well, the number of checks, I can answer that because if you log on to the PayPal account, you can, I looked at all the activity for the last month or so. And so far this month, I think the number of checks they've gotten is 5. But I'm sure it goes up.
I don't think you looked at Steve Ritchie's system. He shows an enormous number of checks.
In the last 5 days, this month.
Just for 5 days? I haven't looked at that.
I was just I could, if you go on to PayPal and there's a link that says activity, and it lists every transaction in PayPal, and I just took this month, or maybe I took the last 2 months.
Well, the checks, I thought the checks don't have anything to do with PayPal.
Well, maybe they're depositing the checks directly into the bank account.
Yeah, they have a scanner. They
They have a scanner that puts them in.
All right. Well, then I'm corrected. So I basically, I don't know. I of course have never seen the bank account. But I think if we get a login for that bank account, it'll be very easy to see every transaction, every debit, every credit, withdrawal, deposit. I'm going to use those terms. No more debits and credits. So once we get that, and we should be able to get that pretty quickly. We should be able to get that even before you do the signature cards.
I want to make sure that I got Ann's list before we go forward.
Yeah, where are we now? Are we on item 5 here?
We're still on the lockbox for me. Because Ann said it would be helpful to get the number of phone calls, its workload information, the number of checks processed, and you had a third thing, and I can't remember what.
Number of telephone calls from members.
That's it. Yeah. No, I got phone calls, checks, and what else?
Pieces of mail that are not checks.
Oh, mail pieces. Yeah, that's okay.
I would also ask, before you just ask for a number, ask for a report, because they can make up a number.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you look at the bank statement, you can easily see what's deposited, what's been withdrawn. As far as phone calls, do they log every phone call they get? They should, but I don't know.
They do.
They do? Good. Ask for the phone log.
That's usually pretty automatic, though, isn't it? I think the systems just do that.
Well, I'm not assuming anything. But
Well, they give you that message at the for quality purposes, your phone call may be monitored, recorded. Okay. Okay, thank you. We can move forward.
Now we're on number 6, I think.
Well, I wanted to ask another question on new accounting system. This is again assuming that that the option on Club Express would not be exercised.
No, this would be in addition to Club Express, because Club Express is not an accounting system. They tie in QuickBooks Online.
Okay, so it's not they have no accounting system that comes with the association then.
No, and there's a one-time charge of $100 to do the connection. I'm sure that's probably negotiable, because I don't think it's terribly difficult.
Does it have the capability of working with the deferred lifetime accounts, or did you get into that, Jim?
Deferred lifetime.
No, we have lifetime membership, and we do spread those over 10 years of income and keep track of the cash by year. So that's about the only tricky thing we do with regard to our accounting, is that we do defer the revenue from lifetime accounts, lifetime members.
I'm sure that can be done. I mean, that's above my pay grade. But one of the things, number 5, retain an accountant. And I think we should have somebody who looks over this and is there to help us. And the tax reporting, I'm assuming, is fairly simple. But if you want a recommendation, there is a man in New York that I use for Inslee's account and I probably could twist his arm. He charges, but that it's not even relevant because Inslee has many, many more transactions, and it's much more complicated than what we're talking about. But I could. His name is Mike Bender. He's with an accounting firm in New York. At least it would be a start.
Yeah, Jim, could you make a note of that lifetime thing? Because I think you're going to be the person implementing this program, and you're going. And if we take all the money, but we have to provide benefits later, we're providing benefits with no income to cover them. It's very important that the deferred income from the lifetime memberships be recognized, because the lifetime memberships are a significant portion of the whole. They still get all of the benefits, and we need income to assign to those benefits, or we don't know where we stand. Of course, at some point, I guess you can go into the cash.
I've already made the note, and I think it's called a deferred lifetime liability.
I think you're right, but I just the question will come up, as it's come up in the past, about at what point does NaCCRA go bankrupt? And we've decided in the past that bankruptcy involves burning through all of the cash and breaking faith with all creditors. And so I think that will be something that may come up, because periodically during the time I've been involved with NaCCRA, we've been approaching bankruptcy. Right now we're in good shape because Valerie and I donated $50,000. But once you burn through the $50,000, I think you may want to have in mind the possibility of what will constitute bankruptcy and how do you avoid it.
I don't think there's any question in my mind, but I will ask Mike about accounting for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand completely what you're talking about.
Okay. All right. I did, but I got the feeling from this, though, Jim, that you're not really pushing retaining an accountant at this point, or are you?
Oh, when you say retain, I think we need to talk to somebody, and we agree to pay him so much a month. I don't think we need to do this. I think have a conversation once we get up, and I mean, I can set up the chart of accounts. That's not rocket science.
Yeah.
And
well, if you do the one above it, you'll have a chart of accounts. What I was thinking about was the year-end reports, the 990s, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
that's all we really buy at Partners. We only buy write-up work. We don't really buy an accountant.
Yeah, I'm just thinking we ought to have somebody, if we need help, we can call, and I've got that person, so it's not going to cost us a dime.
Okay, you want to be sure that this is not just a resident, because when Kermit Shield, and I put that in the notes there, when he died and his family found all the corporate books, they went down the incinerator.
No, this is the one. The man I'm talking about he's an accountant with a firm. I don't know how large it is in New York City.
I see. So he would be the person who would give us monthly financial statements.
No, we would give our own, because they're going to be on QuickBooks. You can print a financial
Okay,
statement.
who is going to run QuickBooks?
Anybody you want to. You can have 5 users, I believe.
Yeah, but all right.
Plus 2.
Okay, so that's so the question of who is going to be responsible for the bookkeeping is at this point an open question.
Well, I'll take responsibility for setting it up, and believe me, if my daughter can run it, we can.
I think there's some. I've been on online chat with QuickBooks and asked about is it possible to do deferred liability entries, and they said yes.
Okay.
Well, that's useful. The question is, who will be NaCCRA's bookkeeper?
Well, one option is and it would also take care of kind of the clerical piece, is to use a virtual assistant, somebody that works out of their home that functions like
Yeah,
your person.
okay. That would be a solution.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be a cost item. I mean, I think we can cover that. Now, as we get bigger, yes. But right now, I don't think we need that.
Well, I think you need somebody to kind of handle the day-to-day, so you don't have to worry.
Okay, so is that item 5?
That's
So Jim, do you want to go to item 6?
sure. When I haven't really, other than had that one conversation with this Brianna Hunter, it appears to me that you can have, and the way she described it, we need to do more research on it, but their telephone support, and they describe it on their website. I think we should consider that if you have an intelligent person who speaks English can do this, and we can test it. Who knows, if somebody, you can answer the basic questions. If they have a detailed question about the website, they can say, Mr. Haynes, I'm going to have our expert on the website give you a call back. What is your number? And he will call you back within 24 hours or whatever. That's all we need at the moment. And we can, and this, as I understand, a contract with Da Vinci is cancelable. There's no long-term contract. It's
So will that handle these inquiries like the one I shared with you this morning that I've been having?
Now, Club Express offers technical support for members and the administrators, and part of that technical support would be for a member having trouble logging on, joining. They would talk them through, and that's the line.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
They would not handle NaCCRA content questions, but that could be, they could refer to, a member or way to handle that.
Yeah, I saw that too, Ann, when I was looking at, and I didn't know what, how far they would go. If they want to know something that they can't answer, we can find that out.
Jim, we're still with you.
Okay, I think that's all I have on item 6. And item 7 is kind of really yours, Jack. I was encouraged to see that Steve was making some progress on the PayPal Pro. That was good. And then I just added this Club Express thing. And I would encourage, if I think Ann, or I don't know, watch those videos. They're pretty good.
Yeah, no, I watched the videos. Club Express builds on a platform like the platform Steve Ritchie's has given us. They own the platform, so it would be similar to something like that. But they have what they have that Steve hasn't given us is the call center, and which Ann alluded to. So I think with item 7, we abandon Steve Ritchie's system and we go with Club Express. That's, I believe, what you're recommending.
Well, I think so. And by the way, we own, and what they make it very clear at Club Express, we own the data. We own the database.
Well, we own the database with Steve Ritchie's too.
Okay. But so if things blow up with Club Express, we own the database. So you take the database.
Okay.
Well, I think that's a point we got to stay a few minutes on here, because if I understand the Club Express, and I know Ann's going to walk us through that in a few minutes, the association management system, the records of membership, would be on that system and not on the management system that Jack's been on.
Oh yeah, no, that goes away. That goes away, and it may be because we've been spending a lot of time working with Steve to develop the contacts at the CCRC level. So it may be that with Club Express, every CCRC will be a separate account, right?
Well, the way Steve from Club Express says you can set them up there. They have their own section, but their member count would be folded into our member count, which would keep their expenses down. But
there are no individual members at state or community levels. Those are distinct categories, and there's only 10 states and there's only 40 some communities. The bulk of the membership is individuals, and of the individuals, about 1,600 of those can be associated with a community association, but not all, and we've got maybe 500 that don't have any state or community associated with them at all, yet they live at a CCRC. So
but it's
I think that's really important.
It's possible to set up Steve at Club Express used the term switches. So you can add a switch for somebody that's in a state, in a community, and a NaCCRA member. You can set up a switch for the committees, NaCCRA committees. You can set up a switch for the board members, and then you can set up access for those different switches just to certain areas.
There may be some sharing on that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
There may be some sharing because in Florida's 13,000 members of FLYCRA, for example.
Right.
Only 500 or 600 of those are NaCCRA members.
Right.
And Bennett, for as long as he retains the FLYCRA partnership and association management, he'll have all 13,000 out there. And we don't really have to duplicate that. FLYCRA keeps track of that. Yet we have at various communities like my own and a couple other in LifeSpace, we have a number of members in FLYCRA that are also NaCCRA, but they're not. They don't balance with one another. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Ann, are you going to take us through your Club Express research?
Right. Well, I did have a conversation with the director of sales, Steve Ratchey, and what basically they're a virtual association management company that incorporates most of what we would need except for the accounting side. And what they can provide is web hosting. They can use our domain name. They have templates that can be used so you don't have to, reinvent the wheel. We have a website now, but I think, it's a struggle for me to try to incorporate some of the things I'd like to incorporate because of the MobiRise system. And it would be the type of website that you can have 2 or 3 editors that could log in and work in a Word-like environment to add content, which would be a plus. There's technical support for both members and administrators, and that's a real person answering the phone. They do have the membership database they can work with an Excel spreadsheet to load it up into their membership software. The pricing is based on actual active members, and they have a dues calculator, and I think I sent one along in an email. For instance, using 2,000 members and then adding maybe 20 administrators, it comes out to $402 a month for that service. They also have a non-member mailing list with no charge. So that would be the vehicle to send notices to non-members. And also we talked about having a mailing list of regulatory and governmental people. There's no limit on the number of emails that you can send within the system. If members expire, they keep those members in the database so they're not lost. So they can be used for recruitment later. There's no limits on the number of administrators for the system. There is a merchant account built in, which includes PayPal, and they can also deal with paper checks. I talked to the guy today about that, and they do charge 8 cents per check if they have to, and they use the ACH system, which is the electronic clearinghouse, you know, for banks to do checks. There's an events calendar. There's you can do event registration, which would be great for the spring meeting or for the New Orleans meeting. It would eliminate the need to use constant contact because you can send blast emails through the system. There's 20 modules that come in the standard package, and you can use as many or as few as you want. One of them includes a document library. So this would be a place where you could load up our minutes and past newsletters, etc. You can set up a module for committees, a discussion forum. You can do surveys through their module system. You can set up separate folders for the board, and a forum, everything separate just for the board, so we would have the ability to interact in a private way. You can set up, and also we could set up, down the road, places for state associations or community organizations to have their own presence. And they also have this, in the database, it can be set up with people with lower levels of access to the database called coordinators. And that might be a way for people at the community level to serve as the liaison that would not be using the computer system. Now there's two groups. I told him about the issue we have with people that are computer savvy and those that aren't. And he said, he calls it polarized, that there's some that are very tech savvy and take to it, and others would never touch it with a 10-foot pole. He said, we're used to working with those populations. And he mentioned two groups of, they are hosting the Village to Village website. And if you go online and see that, it's a very nice website. That's kind of the continuing care at home kind of concept, neighborhood villages providing services to older people. And then the other one he gave as an example is called the Saints, which is people that are ushers and are volunteers at some of the performing art venues in Chicago. So, I was in association management when a lot of these software programs were coming out to do, software to manage associations. They were very expensive, very complicated, and they didn't do the job very well. Well, now it's 20 years later, and to me, this just looks like, the best thing since sliced bread. And looking at, he was suggesting the builder pack as the one-time, there's a one-time setup fee to get everything going. And, so I think looks like a great opportunity. And it would be easy to work with for my group.
All right. Looking back to so we've gone over Jim Haynes' document, and I think we want to give it probably a day or so thought. But my proposal, it looks to me like you guys are trending toward a decision. And I think that to implement this, you really need a chief operating officer who's in line with your thinking. So I'm thinking that I should step aside, because I'm now in this president-elect position, which I did really as a placeholder. and we could make, say, somebody like Jim Haynes, the president-elect, with the authority to get this done, and he could work with you, Ann, to get it done. And I'm willing to drop out altogether. I'd like to still be the research director, but I'm willing to drop out altogether and totally get out of the way and let Jim really drive this forward and put the new solution in place, working with Basil.
Well, that would require, if we did that, that we appoint Jim. We have a vacancy on the board now to the board, and I'd like each of us to have a sheet of paper in front of us because I'm seeing a timeline develop that we can do some things now, and we can do other things later. I do like what I've seen so far with this, with the Club Express system, and I do have some background with putting in association management systems like that Ann characterized as didn't work too well. And I tell you, that was my case. That was in early 90s that I worked with an outfit called Smith Abbott. You may recall that system.
That name sounds familiar.
Smith Abbott, yeah. So at any rate, what I would like us to do, without maybe judgment here, but maybe we put this in our thinking caps. So you've given me a couple jobs today. You've given a proposed addition to the board, number one, right? That would be Jim, and I'm assuming you would accept that, Jim. We've had those dialogues before. It would be a position on the board. The second thing would be to take what is an elected position, the president-elect, and I think the timing could happen on that when we go to New Orleans, and you know, with the intentions that we have at this point, we could get that election of the board taking place. I'm going to tell you, I'm uncomfortable with Jack stepping back. I recognize that there would be no NaCCRA today if Jack hadn't been holding it together a long time ago. He's put personal money in it, and right. I don't walk away ever from that kind of investment. And I'm in awe of his willingness to do what he just proposed. But I'm also nervous because as far as a thought leader on the business end of what we do. Now, I don't mean the mechanics of association management. I mean the insertion of our resident posture into the community. He has a great deal of I'm going to say moral authority because of writings that are on the street. So we need, right. In my opinion, we still need engagement of Jack Cumming, or we give away too much.
Well, I just think that I think I'd be the wrong person to drive this thing because Jim and Ann really think that they can really make it happen. I think the biggest challenge, and this is also my experience over the years, is the communication challenge. So the lifeline, notes and news, those things, you're going to want to be considering who'll be picking all that up. I assume that
sort of things that are in my mind. That's very popular.
Yeah, so I assume that Jim has a handle on that, and he can drive that.
I don't think there's any one of us, without demeaning anybody, that can write what you write in that news and notes to people.
Yeah, but I can't both do. I've been on overload.
No, I'm sure you have, Jack, and that.
And so
I just want to give you attribution and let everybody acknowledge.
Yeah, I've been. So if I'm going to build active aging advocates using Steve's structure, because I can adapt it there within the NaCCRA concept, so that if NaCCRA does burn through its money or falls apart, we have an option. My interest is singular. I moved into a community and found that providers just treated residents like second-class citizens, even though they had paid the money, and that they had no prudence in the management of entrance fees, and that if they decided they wanted to expand and obliterate Jim Haynes' home, they felt free to do that. That's my objective. So how NaCCRA fares as an organization is secondary. It's been useful, as I was telling Basil this morning, for me because, for example, it introduced me to the New York Times person, to the Money Magazine person, to the Kiplinger person, and I think we've made headway with that. So I would like to be able to continue an affiliation with NaCCRA. But I think we have a new driving vision for how the organization is going to interact with its residents, with its members. And I think we ought to allow that vision a chance to either succeed or fail.
Well, with that said, Jack, some of us will remember last December in Indianapolis, one of the things you put on the table was the affiliation agreement between that organization and NaCCRA. I would think that this would be a part and parcel of resurrecting that.
Well, what I'd like to be able to do would be to continue to work with NaCCRA, so I don't have to form a separate corporate entity. That would be a brand.
Okay,
but I would like to. But I think that NaCCRA has lost. NaCCRA doesn't have a clear purpose now. So by moving over to active aging advocates under the NaCCRA umbrella, there are two things that can happen. Number one, there can be a clear purpose that people can decide whether they want to align with it or not. And two, we can expand beyond just this dwindling core of cogent CCRC residents and focus on older issues in general. That was something we tried to do in our last bylaws, and it was defeated by the people in Washington State, because they were angry about certain things. There was a particular member there whose initials are LT, who was very vocal in that process. So,
well, all I'm saying is if we do 1 and 2, and you do step down, then, Carla, you'll remain on the board, I assume.
Well, those are things for the board to determine.
Yeah.
I don't need. I think it would be. My goal, pure and simple, is justice for residents. That's the be all and the end all.
Okay.
And what I see is that we've been vying for influence within an organizational sense, and I want to step out of that because I'm focused on success.
Okay.
So I want to be able to focus on getting towards success, and so that's something probably to be buttoned down at the board meeting on October 28th. I don't know how long that. I guess that board meeting is what, 2 hours?
Well, we had it for an hour and a half with a members meeting afterwards. I may have to shift. We've got a lot of things that have happened in the last.
I think with that, then we'll have a complete transition of the leadership team to people who are new to the organization this year.
Mm-hmm. Now, the next thing that I see is that is with that said, and the expectation of affiliation, but not focus. The focus will be for the aging I always get
Yeah.
the.
Well, I want to be able to partner with Jack Snyder
Yeah.
and really, because Jack got fed up with NaCCRA because of the vying for influence thing. I'd like to partner with him and really try to address the core issues facing the elderly in the United States.
The thing that we're doing, I think, is saying that NaCCRA has to be a viable association. And the best way of moving out of partners, at least in the view of what we've talked to so far, is this Club Express offer. And that involves a whole timetable of activities. I did print out your stuff because I still like to read copies, and I haven't read that yet. I printed it off this morning.
Yeah, I've got it all right here.
Yeah, well, you like to read too, huh?
Well,
so at any rate.
Here's my papers.
Yeah, okay, you printed the thing. Oh,
but what I notice is what's missing is the point of contact,
yeah.
the person, the responsibility for permanent repository for documents in corporate memory, and all of these elements. And so I think that with Jim moving into the chief operating officer position, he'll now partner with you, Basil, in all of that.
Well, what I'm saying now is that if you put a timeline on that piece of paper, this is kind of decision day one. This is October the what? 20th or something, and 19th, whatever day it is.
20th.
We've just kind of had consensus. Jack has suggested we sleep on whatever we agree on for a couple days, but right now our going in position is what we just articulated. Appointment of Jim, assignment as a COO, and pursuit of perhaps the Club Express. But I'm not comfortable yet. I really want to go through that in detail.
Well, you're focusing just on the administration. You also have to address the communication, because you have to tell the membership what you're doing.
Okay, can you hold that thought for just a minute? But what we will try to do then in the following week, starting Monday, I'll get an email out to Bennett asking him for the things that you articulated, Ann. Asking him for bank statements and account numbers, whatever I can get, and telling him that on Friday, one of the agenda items that we'll expect to do is to transfer the signatory authority on those accounts from him to me. And then we'll have other people we want on those signatory accounts. And I don't mind sharing that a lot with an executive committee. I think we don't want people our age to only have one person the signatory. So we have to have a number of people who would be acting in that. And I don't mind first signatory, second signatory, third signatory. I think anybody that serves on the executive committee can be in that capacity, because we want to provide for the ongoing program to exist. So I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to put that in motion after we hang up, and to complete that action by next Friday after when I drive out of Tallahassee. So when we see each other on that Friday night, that should be a completed action.
Right.
Make sense?
Yes,
okay.
And we
Go ahead.
put on the Bennett list that I'd like is login information for the Maryland Registered Agent website.
Maryland.
Okay. And I have one final thing. Did you want a follow-up meeting, or do you want to go with the decisions right now?
I do not. I do not want to go. I want to take this as an agreement to move us forward to next week. And this is just my suggestion, but I really hope we can be a team of people who say what's on their mind.
Well, I think we're a team. When would you like that follow-up meeting?
Probably midweek would be the latest I could do it. That'd be Wednesday late, because I'm driving out of here on on Thursday.
So do you want to wait till Wednesday, or do you want to do it sooner?
Well, how do you all feel? I'm sure I'll read this over the weekend. Would Tuesday be all right?
I think we should defer to Jim, because I think Jim has the most to get his head around.
Okay, how about you, James?
Paul?
Jim?
I could do it on Tuesday, except I've got a meeting between 3 and 4.
I would like it late on Tuesday because I've got a lot of things in the mail myself. How about 4 on Tuesday?
Well,
That gets you to 1 o'clock Eastern, Western time.
Yeah,
How about 4 Eastern?
could we make it 4:30, because my meeting goes from 3 to 4 and could go over.
We can make it 4:30. Sure.
Okay.
4:30 Tuesday. Now, what is that?
Would anybody like a live demonstration of Club Express?
Yes.
We could probably arrange that with, he's willing to do that. We could do it in a conference call.
And if you can set that up, and I would really like to see what sort of interface they offer with somebody who's keeping the financial records. Does that make sense to you? In other words, they don't offer an accounting thing, and so one of the things that'll be important to us is, what do we get? Transaction records, deposits. What are the elements of the financial system that can be exported to somebody who is keeping the books? And that would be useful for you, Jim, as I think as well, because you're familiar with Quicken and where those
QuickBooks.
where the interface would be. I'd really like to explore that well. And the other thing I would like to have, if he can deal with this, is the importation of information. We know we have the old partners data bank that was Jack, integral as of the end of September. But in October, we began to operate the Steve Reach's program. So at some point, we're going to have to match and merge, or maybe we're just importing from Steve. I'm not sure how that works.
I think you just take the data from him. I mean, he probably is using the same database software that Club Express uses.
Well, perhaps it is. I want to make sure that we have that. So right now, that evening call on Tuesday will be our go forward, but we'll put Bennett on notice that we want to change the control over the bank accounts at that time, basically at the end of October. Now,
okay, last thing, because I guess we're into this conclusions part.
Yeah.
How quickly do you want a full project management timeline?
Well, let's practice the art of the possible. That will be driven primarily by the Club Express, because that's where data is going to be migrated to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that Jim will put together the total timeline, every step, including principally perhaps when we communicate to the membership the decisions and what they're to do at renewal and other times, and how to join, all of that information.
Well, I agree with that, Jack, but I would believe that ought to be one of the agenda items for Tuesday at 4:30.
Well, that's why I'm mentioning it.
Because we are going to go. We'll all be there Friday night together in the hotel, and we're going to have a board meeting the next morning at 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
we can't not communicate. I mean, we really have to have a method of communication. And I think it might be still a tentative thing. I can't imagine that we will have done all the due diligence we want to do on such a major step by October the 28th. So I think we can tell them where we think we're heading and what our hopes are and what we think the benefits will be, and present it in a very timely manner. But I think as far as telling them the details, it seems to me it would be really too quick to do that while we're there on in the morning of October 28th. Now, I'm open on that. What do I know?
How are you going to keep it secret?
I don't think I'm going to keep it. I'm saying we tell them.
No.
We just tell them we're in the process of doing these things. We have to tell them. We have to tell them.
Yeah.
Number one, we're leaving partners in association management. I mean, that's a for sure. We have to tell them we're taking control of the cash. That's a for sure. But as far as the timeline of migration of data banks and all that, I think we're still going to be in process. What do you all think? What do you think?
I think it's too premature right now to think about that. Maybe Tuesday we'll have a better handle on it.
That's what I'm saying. I want it on the agenda Tuesday.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, whether I'm even doubting that we can get it all together by Saturday, but maybe we can.
But whatever we can get together and say that makes sense in a positive way for our leadership, we have to say, I think.
Right.
Well, I'll say this. I work 24/7. So if it's appropriate to meet over a weekend, I'm available on weekends. So and I set aside anything personal. This is my top priority.
Well, you're going to be working next weekend, that's for sure.
Okay. Is that next weekend already? It's coming up? I guess you're right. Oh, boy.
Surprise.
Okay. A lot needs to get done in a short time, but if people are action minded and they take charge and they do it right and they have a mind for detail, it can be done. Absent any one of those elements, the whole thing will collapse and fail.
So, are we okay with what I'm going to do between now and Tuesday night? Should I write the thing to Bennett and and say I'll be there Friday morning and we'll take control? And I would include Ann and Jim in those signatory cards. I don't know that we can execute it, but we can execute one of them that morning.
Well, I think it's not only SunTrust, but it's also PayPal and anything else that he might have that we don't have.
Yeah, all the. Yeah.
And with active aging, we'll be passing money through NaCCRA and NaCCRA's accounts because we do fundraising. We're going.
Okay, so are there any difficulties with what we said about rearrangement of the executive committee? Any objections to what we're talking about?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sad to hear Jeff say what he's saying, but I can understand where he's coming from.
Well, I don't want to see us lose Jack in any way. I mean, I think we can relieve some of his worry, but I think it's extremely important that Jack stay involved. What we call people is.
And it sounds like you will be, Jack, from what you're saying.
Yeah, I will not be. I don't want to be involved with all this organizational stuff. I want to be focused on the welfare of residents and other aging Americans.
Will you still be the director of research?
Yeah.
That says it for me.
Well, I'd like that, and if not, and if Active Aging Advocates is a NaCCRA brand, then we can run our money through your accounts, and it would have its own separate, in the chart of accounts, have separate accounts, but so it would all be separated, but we know what it is. But all money raised by Active Aging Advocates will go for advocacy.
That's a detail I think we can address. I mean, there are lots of ways to skin that cat.
Okay. But I think what you said was right. You want to make sure that we don't lose Mr. Cumming to the effort, and I don't either. I think it's going to be, it's a move. How about you, Ann? What's your judgment?
Well, yeah, I want Jack to stay involved, and I appreciate that where he's coming from. And I just thought of something else to put on the Bennett list. We'll need a run of
what's this?
The membership records that they have. It would be nice to get, the spreadsheets of the membership since the last membership report, and also the financial reports as of a certain date.
I ask for my own use because I play around with membership. I do watch what's happening, how many lifetime memberships we got. And I do have a copy of the last membership that Bennett put together before they started going. But I think Jack's right. Our membership base now is the new system. And anybody who's renewed or dropped a membership since is in that new system. I had a lady join out of our forum a week ago tomorrow, and she sent her money off, and I'm sure that she's in that new system. She wouldn't be in Bennett's old system.
Well,
yeah, a lot of people have logins now established on the new system with their passwords, and we have no way of capturing their password, so we can't transfer their login information over to Club.
They have to start that over, but that's okay. I'm always changing the password. So,
well, I think what we should have is whatever database of members that that Bennett has now, that we can go back and refer to if something pops up and somebody says, "Well, I paid my check," or my address is. We need to have that it can be kept in electronic form, but I think he needs to give us that.
No, we have all of that. We have his, as of the cutover date, we have his access data. He kept it in something, it's sort of like a fancy Excel. And we have all of that history in Steve's system, and Steve has expanded the transaction accounting beyond what Club Express provides. So there's that data is there until the time when you move it into Club Express.
So, and you can have that dialogue with Steve.
Yes, because we'll be working. But I think we're going to want to be able to work with NaCCRA's members too, because we're advocating for them. They're part of our base, but we won't be limited.
That business partnership, I don't think that's any limitation on that.
Yeah, but see, we as Active Aging, we won't have some of the limitation. For example, from Constant Contacts, partners eliminated everybody who didn't pay dues. So we stopped communicating with them. We can, within Active Aging Advocates, we can communicate with everybody. And so your group is a core group that they'll be benefited because they'll see us advocating, and that's positive for NaCCRA, because NaCCRA really hasn't had an advocacy that's been terribly visible except for the medical deduction, and I think everybody sort of knows that that's kind of a partisan matter.
Okay, so is there anything else? And I'll have to, if you don't mind sending me an email, I want to make sure I get that letter to Bennett right, and I'll coordinate it with you. He won't be around till Monday morning anyhow. So I'll get the text of the email put together. And if you need something I need to add.
Were you talking to me?
I'm talking to all of you. I'm saying I'll put the memo that I think you have asked me to put together with certain data requests.
Oh, okay.
Coordinate it with us. We'll still maintain confidentiality on this. This is not an open subject. We'll deal with the go no go as far as this Club Express. We'll go with that on Tuesday afternoon, and if you can plug in a display of the or I guess it'd be a demonstration of what it does, and if we can read this stuff and then put our questions down and what questions we have, that could be very useful.
Okay.
Okay, does that make sense? I'll take a shot at it, and I'll make sure that I'm at Bennett's office at 0800 on Friday. And if I can get off to, I'll take your contact at SunTrust and try to get those cards executed and whatever else. I don't know about the PayPal thing, but if you tell me what you want, I'll try to do it.
Okay, before we leave altogether, Basil, can you give us a quick account of what you learned in New Jersey the other day? How did the travel go? Was the travel without consequence?
Travel was without consequence, but my age shows, Jack. My age shows. I had a 6:18 boarding time on a JetBlue. So, and I'm at least an hour from the airport, so you know what time I took off.
Yeah.
Then I got up. And
I've got to do that this Friday.
On-time flight, rental car fine. I got right there at the time that Marcia Greenfield was starting her presentation from Leading Age, and she, as usual, gave a very good one. But the pickup from the audience was clearly on the medical deductibility.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, we broke for lunch. After lunch, the guy who's the new ombudsman for direct report to Christie for the aging piece of New Jersey. It's a brand new appointment. Had a terrible old name about that oversaw or facilitated protection for those elderly who are institutionalized. That was his title up to that day. And so he was a young guy and a really good guy, and I had a great discussion with him, told him where we were. It was a very blunt discussion at the table. Same thing you're talking about. Residents are not treated as first-class citizens, are not engaged. Mm-hmm. I gave my talk, and my talk, I developed the theme of the civics, that there are, to me, certain elements of a healthy atmosphere at a CCRC, and part of that is resident engagement. I used the Michelle Holleran stuff, and I indicated that really was, to me, part and parcel of what NaCCRA's primary mission was, and that's education and insertion. And that our clientele started not at the time you become a resident, but as you're preparing for resident. We ought to be the principal educator of anybody who's approaching a CCRC. I just got a show of hands. How many people are here are on a scale of 1 to 10 are comfortable with what they knew about CCRCs the day they moved in? And 1 to 10 was not very much. They're very uncomfortable. Then in the middle, you go all the way to the end. How many hands came up, do you think, when we got to the end where I said 8 to 10? How many felt like you knew everything you needed to? Yeah, exactly. So I said, well, that's what we're about. We're about trying to educate residents, because healthy residents want a voice, but it has to be a credible voice. It has to be an educated voice, or it's just bitching about the quality of the meals, if you can stand my language, Ann.
Yep.
But anyhow, I got some real residents out of that, and a lot of interaction with the crowd. And so my sense of it was good. I marked up the charts when I got back. I'll fix them over time. I had not tried to do the civics presentation before, but I did. I really think that might work. And NaCCRA
it works for me.
huh?
It works for me.
So I got turned on, and that's I did not talk anything. I talked about the kind of organization we got. What's our crown jewels? I think we only got a couple of them. I think NaCCRA.com is a crown jewel. I mean, you go to NaCCRA.com, you can the body of knowledge for residents is there. I think the notes and news is another crown jewel. I think our Lifeline magazine, they're really good. What's our Achilles heel? No membership, no resources. And I was honest. I said, and because I was talking to Orange, and I said, well, our major revenue is individual memberships, and we don't have any here. You know, but and so I don't know whether I made a dent, but I sure made the point. So anyhow, I had a good time. When I got off, I felt like I'd done the job and talked to a lot of people afterwards. But it's the same thing. You know, people say, "Oh, it's really good. I'm really interested." I say, "Well, what can you do to help? You know, would you consider this?" And it's, you know, they're retired, and I made my point, which you've heard too many times. You can't retire from your civic duty. I hope you all vote for example. And so it turned me back on because I've been involved in a lot of busy work. And I hope whatever the heck we do here makes the mechanics of our legal documents and our financial protections and our website maintenance so that it's almost invisible and only facilitates our primary mission of being an educator. You know, and that's, if there's anything that's really been hard for me, is to spend so much of my time on nuts and bolts that really don't project.
Yeah.
So,
Basil, that's fantastic story. I have one question.
yes.
Did you ask for the order?
Huh?
Did you ask for the order? Every salesman forgets. They make these great presentations. They have the slides. They have the song and dance, and they forget to ask for the order.
Nobody's ever accused me of being a salesman. You know, I'll try to remember that the next time, Jim.
All right, so the next time we're going to have a computer set up. Right over here is Sally, and it will only take you 5 minutes to give you
to do that. Yeah.
name and address and your credit card.
Well, when we had our forum here the previous Saturday, Saturday, I did get a few members.
Good.
So. But that's where you can deal with people pretty. You know,
You are a salesman. You just don't know it.
Huh?
You are a salesman.
Nobody's ever accused me of that.
Well, I'm telling you, I told the people that
I
used
get
to
turned
work for
on.
me, everybody in my company was a salesman.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
Maybe it's true.
Well, okay, I believe you. Okay. Any other comments or anything? Have we done our work? Well, I thank you all. You know, this is a tough partnership, and we have signed up for some real work. And, and I know that I know you've been busy up to now, and so have I. And if it's any consolation, I want you to know that that we're also closing, having a similar thing with my Brady Wilkins Scholarship Fund. It's like a tar baby. I can't get rid of it. Yeah, you know what remember the tar baby? I got 2 of them. Okay. So anyhow, thank you all for your time. And,
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Don't.
You're going to let us know about the conference call with.
Yes, I will. Set it up.
on at 4:30 on.
Yes.
No, I meant the conference call with all the senior.
And
Call Express.
Oh, well, yeah, she's going to set that up, but
Yep.
yeah,
I'm gonna see if we can get them to.
the demonstration. Yeah.
Yeah. Call them now.
Okay.
Cheers.